Yeah,
Let's hope.
so yeah, so it's a pleasure, my pleasure to be here today, giving what is going on in the world. We are able to meet online in the community, and I think JJ Lake has done a fantastic job to
Thanks.
help the community. In the past, we have partnered for quite a few years, and even before Yifu joined JJ Lake, yeah, he has personally done great to the startup community. Um, anyway, yeah, so we have about, Yifu told me I have about 30 minutes to share what maybe my little tips and journey, what I have thought about building a business. And then we have about maybe 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
for QA. And if you have a question, you can use the QA or chat
Okay.
to list out. And I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. I prepared a short deck, so maybe that can guide us through the talk. I don't know if can you guys see or
Yeah, now it's coming.
great. Great. So I think today's topic is about how to build a resilient business. Everybody knows right now is a little bit crazy time, right? So before we start, I'm just give you a quick background about myself and about Wisemont. So I founded the Wisemont Capital together with some alumni friends back 4 years ago. Which is focused on the AI and IoT early stage startups. So my personal background is mainly in enterprise software. So through the past 4 years, we have invested over about 45 companies, mainly in the software, SaaS, enterprise software, and some robotics hardware business as well. So for example, the Zingbox, which is acquired last year by Palo Alto Networks, and then Comical acquired by Workday. So we actually had 3 exits last year. And then also we have invested in a company, autonomous drive, like WeRide.ai, just name a few. Yeah, before I started investment, I was working at a consulting outsourcing company called BeyondSoft, which is later become public in 2012. I helped them build their kind of a US business from 2 million to 65 million. And I managed the team globally. And I also worked with many multinational companies. So I do have kind of personal experience of managing team, growing the business, and it is a journey, and I learned quite a bit. So I'm willing to share some with you today. So now I'm just going to quickly jump into our dialogue today, and I want to be today's kind of a little bit personal and not very formal sharing. Yeah, just to share what I experienced, what I think. Perhaps now you feel a little bit anxiety, hopefully not a lot, right? So capital market, I'm not quite sure how many people in the audience today are thinking about going to run a startups or already on that journey. So probably at this time, there are a lot of questions regarding, how can you raise the money and how to run the business, right? So I'm telling you right now, it is difficult to raise money, right? It is difficult, even now we have portfolio companies, last month, this month still are able to raise the money. But I'm telling you right now, is actually the investors are more focused on helping out the existing portfolios to make sure that they can run long instead of taking new investment. They're more cautious than before. So during this time, as a startup founders, it is even more challenging, to ask, what should I do right now? So I'm telling you, maybe it's the time you focus on the fundamentals, all right? Maybe 2014, 2015, the timing is very, very important in terms of running a business, in terms of raising money. There's the things happen you can do during when the capital market is really great and people just have a load of money want to deploy. But right now, there are so many uncertainties, so people are getting cautious. But of course, the investors are still making investment. We're still making investments, and so are many VCs who joining, for example, this program, right? They're still making investment, but the bar is much higher than before. And also people are asked, is your business resilient? When something like this happen, can you still survive, right? So in terms of running a business, it is important to know this 3W word: who, what, and where, right? So who you are, or and what you plan to do, and where are you going? So there's 3 questions, and you constantly have to be able to answer, and in a very simple word, right? And the person I find, is extremely important during this time, during the crisis time, and focusing on the most important thing is very, very key. Like deduction. Are you going to do a deduction, or are you going to do the addition? Many startup founders or entrepreneurs, we have a dream, we have a vision that we want to fulfill, and there are a lot of things that are on your list, but it's important to know your top, the most important thing that you want to do, and perhaps the top 2 things you want to do, and to trim down that, prioritize. That's very, very important. So I remember, back in 2008, that's probably the second year I joined beyond, my previous company, right? And we ran into financial crisis, right? And then at that time, one of our key customer asked all the people they have worked with. This company is huge, right? Asked all the vendors to do the costs. To do the raise, lower the rate, cost deduction, right, by a significant number, and our margin is not very high, so it's a very, very dilemma, key at that time. We asked ourselves, can we support that? So they asked all the vendors, at that time we were facing a choice: should we lower the rate or not? We actually choose not to do that, right? And of course, that pissed off the customer to some point, because they kind of felt unsupported at that point. But then we kind of iterate, telling them why we cannot lower the rate, and by doing so, actually, we'll be able to focus on the very important, because at that time the customer is saying, hey, if you not lower the rate, we're not giving you new business, right? But at the same time, we're telling them, first of all, our quality is very good. We have to maintain, the cost, the rate, in order to continue to provide high quality services. And second of all, we did a very thorough study regarding this client, and know what is the most important thing in terms of their company's strategy. At that time is the cloud. It was the new thing, new strategy this company do, and they are not very familiar in this area. So we actually, spend a lot of time focusing on, building our services to make sure, our services and the marketing strategies and also deliveries are more, all aligned to helping out this client's key strategy, right? We work with their key decision makers and telling them, this is what you guys can do in this, and this is how we help, right? And at that time, we kind of reduced, be more focused and come down to the fundamental things. And of course, during that time, the revenue is very important, So this is just give you an example of what you can think, during this crisis time. And also, if you're not sure, we have to answer, who, what, and where. A lot of times, I think people are going through the journey, the startup is the journey. personal, is also a journey. Many times, you're not sure what you're going to do. If you're sure, a lot of times if you're very clear about what you want to do, and you're getting there with persistency. But a lot of times there's uncertainty, you're not sure. So go for a walk, sleep over it, and then try to address the problem the first thing in the morning again. A lot of times it may be all clear after you kind of have a little relaxation, right? And also I personally feel many times, if I'm not clear, I come back and ask what is my strength. I'm sharing with you, perhaps go back and think about what is your gene, what is the best in yourself, and what is best in your business. So I'll give you another example, in my business career, that we at that time we hired a consultant to help us grow our business even further with a better image in front of our client. This consultant come back to us, to me, and sharing with me, our competitors, what image they are, and then kind of advised us to kind of reshape over our image to be pretty much exactly as our competitor. But then I thought about it, and then I told him, I said, well, if our entire marketing messages be like, first of all, we can't, there are certain things our competitors or somebody that you want to kind of wrap yourself in there. It is not honest or fun. It's not true about. And in the same time, by doing so, I lose my own uniqueness and strengths, right? So I kind of convinced him that this is not the right thing to do, because everybody has their unique strengths and business, right? And of course, during this time, if you're not certain, you should kind of come back, review what is the strengths, what make yourself best, right? What does your customer think? Why do they buy your business, right? What is the most important thing, and impress, and make sure that message is communicated out loud, and also you build your strengths further based on that. A lot of times, you're able to carry your uniqueness, and then you are able to go further on that, right? And then some other tips, during this time, I think cash is the king. Starting I think last year, at the beginning of the 2019, when the crisis hasn't happened, that we started already advise our portfolio companies to take a look at their cash, make sure they have enough 12 to 18 months of the cash to that kind of a runway. And, some companies listen to our advice more wisely, closely than others, right? So others, and because in the earlier years, when startups are able to raise money like within a month or 3 months, we have seen that, right, in 2015, 2016, right? At that time, they're able to raise money so quickly, so they didn't build into their kind of a timeline. They didn't anticipate, they may have a cash strength, pressure later, right? So if that's true, then later you'll be able, you may run into trouble, right? So I think number one for startups is survival is very, very key, right? And you gotta be able to watch your cash very closely, review that. If you're already cash pressure, review that every week. Otherwise you should watch out, every month. Also avoid fixed cost. Avoid try to get this really big office and more than you need, and lock down long-term deal which you cannot get out of it if a crisis happens, right? So some startup founder told me, they're saying, hey, if they don't have a really nice big office, and they're really worried that they cannot attract the talents, and I don't think that's the right answer, right? And you should be able to attract talents because of yourself, because of what you do, right? It's not because of the office, the big office, right? And also, watch out for the risk. A lot of times I think people are knowing the risk, it's just because it is something that hasn't happened, immediately, they tend to ignore it, or it's an unpleasant thing to happen. This risk including environmental, including security risk, other times we know back in our mind, it just don't take it seriously, or don't take time, or it may be painful to look at the problem. I think, human naturally kind of try to avoid the painful things, right? But, if you're the founder, you have to be really, take the responsibility of doing so, right? And thirdly, take actions quickly if there's a trouble, so this is something I found out that I have to constantly talk to the founders, especially regarding the financial cash things. A lot of times they have the cash problem, but they don't take actions quicker enough. Sometimes not trim down the office rent, for example. Sometimes not let go people that they are not really needed quick enough. So this is really, it can be painful if you have to lay off people, or if you have to talk to your team and say, hey, we have to take pay cut, or not, founders not taking taking the pay for a month or two, right? Or something. But if you don't do that immediately, quickly, the problem only going to get bigger, right? So and also, focusing on the customer and products, focus on the revenue. I have a friend who is a fantastic founder. I knew her like 7 years ago when she started building the business. So she has gone through a lot, right? So she told me that there are so many times that she wasn't able to raise money. Just spending so much time, especially like during crisis time, right? It's just very difficult to raise money, and then in the end it's like, yeah, forget it, let me focus on building products and selling and revenue generating, and getting customer, and she survived. Her business is thrilling, it's doing well. So I think during the crisis time, focusing on the customer and products. If the investors is taking a long time to review, right? During this time, investors are taking more cautious step, but of course people are still investing. We got portfolio companies that are able to raise money lately, because they're continue to focus on their customer and building out their products ranking is rising. They're still revenue is still growing during this time, and the investors know, right? And they want to jump in to join, because if the company is resilient, still able to grow their business during this time, that says a lot, right? So and also during this time, if you have investors are interested, get the money, get their money, even though sometimes the turn may not, let's say the valuation may not be like doubled or tripled, right? But you got to make sure that you have enough cash flow to run your business, right? And then another tip, I think is important. I recently learned about this. It's called Gabby. That is that's grateful, and exercise, breakfast, and you, right? So that's, I personally think those tips are fantastic. It's kind of something you really got to watch out about your own kind of mental well-being, because a startup is tough, and right now it's tough time. A lot of times exercise is important. Now I think cloud is enable you to connect to your friends even for far away. Recently, so my friends asked me to join this cloud exercise. I personally find it's fantastic, right? Because I myself a lot of times is lack of discipline of doing exercise, but I know it's very important. So I got a friend helping me, ask me to kind of join them. And if you can do the exercise yourself and go for a walk, and it's fantastic, or find friends to support. And a very important tip, have a support network. That means doesn't have, actually, I would say is somebody outside of your coworkers, your client coworkers, is just a different friend circle, alumni, or a support group that you actually can share your anxieties and problems, or just by being there, if them being there, so sharing some ideas, even a lot of time unrelated, you help. You feel that you're being supported, and you're I think this is very, very important. And then you don't know how much help you might get later down the road, right? And also, I think it is critical to reach out to people. If you are capable of helping others, helping the community, do so, and also ask for help, right? And write or WhatsApp or WeChat your friends, acquaintances, and neighbors, reach out to people and check out and just say, hey, how are you guys doing, right? And helping out. And you never know. I think in my business life, I many times I felt people helped me because I helped them, or because I just keep contact and keep friends with them, right? So I think during this time we can save commute time. Most of the people are at home, right? And because we cannot go out and social, it's important it's great time we have the tools that helping us through all this, social networks and all kinds of tools, right? And then lastly, I want to share my thoughts about what new opportunities I have seen, right? And I think right now, everybody pretty much has to rely on the Zooms or teleconferencing for developing the relationship and business, right? It is not as if, personal touch as you go build a personal relationship, have coffee or dinner, but at the same time, you save time commuting, and everybody is pretty much on the same page. And also you're able to reach out to your customers from far away at much lower cost, right? And before, if you don't travel over there, your customer may feel like, hey, you're ignoring me, or maybe the important things can be pushed out. But now, everybody understands that you have to do the Zoom meeting. So it's more, if you're building the business, that's really essential to your client. Right now, I think is a great time to do the stress test, to see how important your business is. Only if, we have, I think we're fortunate, most of our portfolio companies, they're focusing on the business essential business, which means even during this time, their client cannot cut them off, right? So this is a stress test that to see if you're building business for really important enough for your customer. It's not nice to have, it's important to your customer, right? And now everybody's on the same page. Communication cost is lower in a way because you don't have to fly over there, you don't have to drive, you can save your commute time, right? You're actually able to run meeting after meeting, and then think about how you can improve your Zoom communication effectiveness online. if you're working at home, make sure you have a professional background, so your client doesn't feel like, okay, it's a chaotic the personal workspace, right? Make it appear professional. And then there are many tools available helping you the business. I think we're lucky in the US. There's so many software tools available, apps, and and also even for the personal enrichment, right? There, I think museums are open their free tools, and the books are all available, and then also a lot of leaders are sharing out their tips online for free during this time as a part of the community contribution, right? And the new opportunities, I think, this virus, even though it is so unfortunate to the human's life and to the economy, it does provide new opportunities to startups. So for example, I think people are spending time during this lockdown time, right now, if you look, people are spending time at their home. So that's kind of prioritized. The personal space will be more important, right? And if you just think about it, how much more time you have and what you're spending time on, you probably realize, what new opportunities are there. So for example, the probably in-home exercising, the people are spending more time cooking and learning, right? And so those are all presented opportunity, and also software business, right? And I think the software technology, cloud technology are probably the company hasn't been impacted by much by the virus, right? Amazon is doing great, and Zoom is doing great. Those kind of software business actually are pretty resilient in a way. And also like healthcare, I believe after this crisis, there are so many problems we have run into during this, how the public health system were able to react quickly, and how the drugs development will happen for developed, and also FDA process and entire healthcare system wasn't really functional properly. So I believe after that, there's going to be kind of review of how the society and system can address this crisis, this type of crisis, if in the future they happen again, or if in the future this can be seasonal thing, right? I hope it's not, but you never know. Yeah, so I think healthcare, is a huge business in the past, but because of the regulations, and it's really slow, and the software system, the hardware system, the drug development, there's a lot of regulation, I believe, after this will actually have changed. And also, each country, US, worldwide, has put up a new incentive plan to support the growth in the fundamental kind of infrastructure growth, right? And fundamental technology. And I think in the US also talked about how the manufacturer rebuild the manufacturing infrastructure in the country, right? And I think robotics and a lot of business, essential business in the past still rely on people. In the future, probably those key business will be considered, how to do the more automated way, right? Including robotics, including the more software supported infrastructure. So I think that presented a great opportunity for technology startups, right? So, during this time, probably spend a lot of time at home, probably a lot of time thinking, think of, where you spend the time, right? And even if you feel so frustrated, you play like Animal Crossings or different games. And, I think esports entertainment will be another thing, right? People, will be relying on, hopefully with the new kind of hardware compound, maybe the AR, VR will be thriving again, right? I think gaming right now is esports gaming are, this online entertainment that it will be growing because of this change. A lot of human behaviors are changing right now, right? So because we're forced to do the work remotely, and if the thing run long enough and we figure out an efficient way of doing this, maybe in the future that this work environment change may not be short term, who knows, right? So anyway, so those are my thoughts. I think that I'm about running out of my time, and I think we can go to the QA, right? Yeah, so Yifu, what do you say?
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you, Jun. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So especially the parts that's the concept you brought in, the GEBY, the grateful exercise, breakfast, and the most importantly, you. Because everything's the coronavirus. I guess asked a lot by my parents and also friends back in China. They're saying that I have seen like 20,000 confirmed cases a day, and you're all right over there. I gotta ask a lot, but honestly, since we're all got the shelter in place, we're staying at home all day, and I barely go outside. I go outside like 2 weeks a time, so it really doesn't bother me. What really bothers me is my own status, like my own condition. Like sometimes I stay up late and sometimes I get up in the noon. So that's the things that really bothers me.
Yeah. So I think I heard the recent statistics is maybe people are now working this 9 to 5 shift, but they end up actually working longer period because actually working at night and weekends, and so yeah, of course a lot of people have kids at home, right? So right now there's distractions and you have to attend to those kids' responsibilities, but people are kind of adjusting in a way.
Yeah, it's a lot of difference comparing the way that we work in the past. There's like so-called work-life balance, and right now it's all integrated together, and sometimes it's very hard to draw the line since we are all working at home.
Yeah. And I think personally, be able to keep the discipline is very important. Finding your like,
but it's hard. It's very hard.
I know. Yeah.
All right, let's jump to the questions that have been raised by the audience. So the first one here, it's actually more about your fund. So what areas your funding was in. Those are actually basic information that we can all find at the Wisemont Capital's website. And also the audience is also asking, may I know what's the fund size and who are your LPs? I don't know if those information is shareable.
Yeah. Sure. So Wisemont Capital, the fund one had 50 million. And we invested about 45 companies, and mostly in the AI and the technology kind of IoT space. We'll continue this focus in the fund two. Right now, in the progress of closing, and we have already had quite a few investors kind of endorsed that. And this fund will become bigger. And we will continue to focus in the AI-driven company. So our LPs is kind of both in the US and also worldwide. And alumni networks. I graduated from Tsinghua University, so we got a lot of support from our alumni.
And the next question is from Harry. So assuming we get to the new normal by Q3 2020, curious what the VC community thoughts are in terms of the new investment.
So this is regarding this year?
Yeah, this year, Q3.
Okay. Yeah, I think each VC, maybe each fund have their own strategy. I think that right now is for us, we continue to invest, right? Even though of course, when we look at the companies, we have to take a look to see if the business fundamental things were how good the founders are. And right now is probably a good time to invest in terms of you can have enough time to do your due diligence, and also you can see how the founders are responded to the crisis, and also probably more negotiation flexibility on both sides, right? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but of course I checked with a lot of VC friends, and many saying that they got to prioritize helping out their own company. I mean, portfolio companies, right? That which makes sense, because I personally found the VC investment business still requires a lot of face-to-face meeting. Even though we reside most on the Zoom meeting, still the personal meeting in a way it still give you a kind of a first-hand feeling about the teams, and to see how they interact with each other. And that remote teleconferencing is a little still challenging in a way. Yeah, and also the due diligence.
Next question is from Jun, and will Wisemont invest seed stage companies in the current situation?
Seed stage?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of our investments are seed stage, right? Yeah.
So in the current situation, still yes, right?
Yeah.
Great. Next question for this is a great one. So from Zhang Qingwen, regarding new opportunities coming out of COVID-19, are SaaS model business more promising in VC's minds going forward? And she also has a follow-up question. The other question is, can you share some thoughts on why gig economy models, for example, DoorDash, Airbnb, Uber, Lime, are not actually working well within the crisis?
So can you repeat the first part?
The first part is, regarding new opportunity coming out of COVID-19, are SaaS model business more promising in VC's minds going forward? That's the first question. And also, Jun, you can also read those questions from the QA board. And
Okay. So SaaS model, in my way, has been one of our mainly focused area, right? And I think it's not just during the crisis. SaaS was kind of in the software world, right? It's widely used these days, right? People are used to it. Clients like it because they're able to test the service very quickly, and also the startups like it too, because then it's kind of a subscription model that automatically renew, right? So in terms of if your product is good enough, it has a stickiness building in, so you have this kind of business ongoing, right? So, and then you'll also be able to update your features and services much more quickly than before, because before you have to come up with this large budget, and you have to convince the client to do a large buy. Yeah, and also I think in the US, many VCs like software, because software is much easier to deploy. Hardware investments takes a lot of investments in terms of do the tape out, in terms of do the prototype, and also the supply chain management is very important. In a way, the hard cost at the beginning could be huge, right? And also, if you don't manage that well, there can be a lot of waste. But there are some VCs just focusing, in every area. I believe, if a VC is very focused in the area, you can find the VCs in many different area, right? Hardwares and semiconductors, biotech, they're very specialized VCs, right? So, yeah.
And her second question is, can you share some thoughts on why gig economy model, for example, like a DoorDash, Airbnb, Ubers, are not actually working well within the crisis? Well, from my understanding, well, for Airbnb, Uber, Lime, because it involves the offline activities, so they probably are not working well under the pandemic. But I don't know about the DoorDash. How is the DoorDash going?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because we're now focusing on those kind of a shared economy, consumer-based, investments. I personally don't know too much about how DoorDash is doing. I heard that food deliveries, that type of service is thriving in a way from the demand side, right? But of course, if your customers are out of business, and then you're facing challenge, right? But I think,
true.
Yeah, but I think DoorDash enables the restaurants to kind of, because the restaurants are closed, right? So many restaurants who are able still selling online, they're able to still survive, right? Otherwise, you just completely close down, right? Yeah, but because of virus, you have to make sure that your employees are safe, right? So we heard that the grocery delivery services, there's huge demand right now, and the bandwidth is limited because of the how many human human body we have, right? Logistics can be an issue, right? So that's a kind of the thing. And I think the Airbnb, Ubers are all impacted because of concerns of the traveling right now. There's no travel, right? So, so that got impacted. But I think Uber, and what I heard is those used to be focusing on a larger car, because people are now traveling, they're not taking Uber, or there's a concern about the virus, but people are looking into the small transportation tools. Those are actually more variable. I chatted with my friend who's doing the kind of small transportation tools, and she thinks that there are a lot of opportunity for her. Yeah.
Great. The next question, this is a tough one. So how are US-China relations affecting startups that rely on business developments involving the two markets?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think there's a lot of political, geopolitical uncertainty, gotta say, right? That's evolving. I think as a startup, we just have to be adaptive, right? Adaptive. And then in a way, you have to pick a market that you focus on. Right. Especially at the early stage, you're not big enough to be able to, put your focus too thin, right? So in terms of market, you have to focus in one market primarily to build out success before you're able to tackle both markets, right? Because each market are large enough for you to just completely focus on. Just give me a second. I think my cat wants to get out of the room. I'm back. So in terms of market focus, pick a market that you have the strength, right? If you understand the U.S. market better, you cannot move to another country, stay in the U.S., build your team. Of course, in terms of leveraging the talents, you can leverage talents in multiple locations, right? But of course, cross country, you have to be compliant. You have to consider the security risk and the concerns from your client. If you're dealing with data issue, right? But you also have, there's a benefit of the cost benefit if you do offshore, operations of that. Yeah, and watch out, stay on top of the latest regulations, advice from your investor, from your lawyer, and engage in those talk, and be adaptive, yeah. And I think this geopolitical is gradually shaping, and then we learn how much it may impact the business. I just read an article, I think yesterday, about how many college in US, some have to be closed down because of the decrease, the uncertainty of the virus and decrease of their students. And also we know that Chinese students are reconsider their college plan, right?
Okay.
The international students are impacted because of the crisis, and so it also impacted the US college as well. So with the change we'll figure out. There are a lot of uncertainty at this point. Yeah,
because a few years back when US and China were in good relations, so a lot of startups were just leveraging the both markets, doing some business here and there, and by right now it's the best for startup to be focused.
Yeah, so I think it's important that you stay connected, right? In the community, share the learnings with other folks, other startups, founders, with advisors and investors. And then be adaptive is very important. Yeah.
Definitely. So next question is from Harold. So under new opportunity, you mentioned robotics. I follow this area for 40 years, except for a company like Roomba and the Intuitive Surgical. There are not standalone robotic companies that I see. Why do you think now is a good time for robotic companies?
I just think right now, after the crisis, there will be a lot of respect review of regarding how the society and system responded to the crisis, right? And the system have showed so much shortcomings during this time, right? And also, U.S. itself have talked about building the manufacturing infrastructure again. And also just think how, but the environmental regulations there, the human risk is there, in terms of the safeties and concerns, those cannot be changed, right? So in the same time, we have to have business fundamental things continue to run, right? And how to leverage the robotics and how to leverage the automation and cloud and softwares, and are all kind of that opportunity will come, right? And also I think during this crisis, the government has to give incentives to help any healthcare companies that can help out the COVID-19. They got they got a fast green light to get FDA approval. They got the sponsorship, right? Those kind of things, incentive plans, and we expect it to come. Like, it's not just the U.S., right? Worldwide, and people are kind of saying, hey, we cannot have the economy shut down like this, So we got to change in a way to be able to respond to this quickly.
It is a promising area. And the next question is from Bi Chuan. What do you think of IoT investment in general, and specifically in your firm, these days when supply chain is unstable, what would you suggest IoT companies?
So IoT company, we started to invest in IoT company from, I think, 2015, right? At that time, it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't going as fast as I thought it would be, right? Many times, if you look at the hype curves, and there's a kind of a dip down, and then it goes up again, right? Yeah, I think at that time, there's still kind of a lack of the infrastructure building, right? And what is going to change, after this is we see each countries are looking at the infrastructure building, the 5Gs, and I think a lot of the IoT is relying on the infrastructure building, and how the country, view the importance, but still, so even though the IoT space wasn't as fast as I thought it would be, but in US, I still see that growing gradually, right? So for example, people are really kind of more adaptive, or used to have surveillance camera at home. More people, adopting that, right? And also, even though right now the business model for autonomous drive wasn't really clear yet, and there's still, people are continue to invest, and those startup company continue to make progress, right? So we still see that, progression, moving forward. Yeah.
Great. The next question is a juicy one. Thank you for the talk. How frequently do you have to compete with other funds for great startups? In this case, what do you do to win the funders?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So at the seed stage, actually, the VCs are more kind of like friends. Because at the early stage, we know that the startup founder will require a lot of help. So VCs actually, there are some VCs of course we have better relationship, or more familiar with than others, right? And we co-invest together because we know each other's strengths and and especially how helping the VCs can be. Those are way more happier than others, and sharing the deals, even sometimes co-invest together. And of course there are some cases that usually VC will fight for quota. It's not like will be ruled out. It's just there's only so much money that startups need to share. And yeah, fighting the quota sometimes can be an issue, right? I would say, in order to be successful, VC, a fund have to be focused on the special area we're focusing on and bring the value, right? So. If the startup founders see the values we bring to the tables, and a lot of times they're convinced, and they fight for our money and the connections.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's not only the money, but also the resources.
Yeah,
behind.
it's actually more important. The values bring to the table. A lot of times the startup founder doesn't realize that until later stages. Okay, or we felt really lucky to have you, as an investor, because you helped us so much. And
The next question is asking, is Wisemont investing primarily in Seattle area startup? I think it covers the West Coast, right? Not only the Seattle area, but also Silicon Valley.
Yeah, actually Silicon Valley is the primary.
Yeah.
We did invest because the fund at first started in Seattle. I personally lived in Seattle for many years, right? So we cover entire US. We also have some investments in Boston and New York. So yeah, so Seattle, Bay Area is actually one of the primary. Yeah, LA, Boston, New York.
And next question is, you mentioned cash is king. It is a hard time for most companies. We all hope everything can recover as soon as possible, but it cannot. How can we survive in this long period? Thanks again.
Okay, yeah. So first of all, have you applied for the PPE yet? Yeah. If you haven't, do so with your banker, right? Yeah, and second of all, ask your existing, because they're right now raising new money from new investor can take much longer time, right? And go to your existing investors and ask for help. Many of them will help you bridge it, right? Yeah. So, and of course, even more importantly, look at your business top line. What it generates revenue. How can you sell it, right? Focus on your customer, focusing on getting the revenue, and also review your cost sheet, right? Where do you spend the money on, and can you negotiate a new rent deal? A lot of the landlord are willing to kind of forgive, a couple of months rent or help out in a way, delay payment, right? And also, talking to your team and see if there's a cost reduction, possibility. And I think it's an exercise if you're running into the pressure, cost exercise is constantly kind of things that you probably have to think about and constantly review that, right? Cutting the unnecessary spending or labor, yeah.
Definitely. So JJ Lake is a landlord itself, and we got asked by the startup a lot by our members, saying that if they can cut the rental cost, and we actually we were really helpful during the pandemic to help them through. We took a big hit as well, but the most important thing is that we can survive this together. And
it's great you're doing this for a startup.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time for one question. So the last one is from Stephen. So if a startup has several lines of revenue, do you see this as a strength or weakness in the current market? That's a good one.
Well, because I don't know that your situation, is difficult to answer that. I think there's a good and bad, right? Because I don't know the specific scenario. The good things that you have multiple sources of the revenue. You don't rely on just the one line. If that one line had a problem, you still have others, right? That's a good thing. And I'm not sure about things is that how big is your team? Are you focusing on the most important things? And right now, right, everything has an ROI. It's probably you need to do analysis on, the importance of your business line, right? To see which one has you're spending your time, effort, and how important it is generating revenue and for your long-term growth, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have to do a thorough analysis.
Yeah, so the most important thing is to use the money smartly.
Right.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna cover it for tonight. Thank you very much, Jun, for joining us for tonight. Thank you for your sharing, and also thanks you all, the audience, for joining us. And for our next episode, we will have Qingyuan Ventures. I'll see if I can share my screen here. There we go. So for next Thursday, we will be honored to have Dr. Xu Gui Xiao. He's the partner of Qingyuan Ventures, and he will give us a talk at next Thursday. All right, thank you all for joining us tonight, and you guys have a great night. Thank you, Jun, again for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.